Let's talk about all of this. Joining us, Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. His district encompasses parts of Brooklyn and Queens. Mr. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I just want you to explain, because you called the grand jury's decision out on Staten Island the other day not to indict the police officer, Daniel Pantaleo. You said it was a stunning miscarriage of justice. Elaborate, because we now know, we don't have all the details, obviously, all the testimony, but these 23 members of the grand jury, they did meet for several weeks. They heard dozens of witnesses, saw a lot of evidence, 23 members of the grand jury, 14 whites, 9 non-whites. Why was this a stunning miscarriage of justice?
Well, first of all, Eric Garner was unarmed and he did not resist arrest. Second of all, there was a chokehold used, resulting in his death. And that chokehold, Wolf, has been banned by the New York Police Department for more than 20 years. Third, there was a medical examiner who concluded that Eric Garner's death was the result of a homicide, chest and neck compressions that came about as a result of that chokehold that was used. Fourth, on 11 different occasions, Eric Garner said, "I can't breathe." But at no point, not after the first time, the second time, the third time, all the way through the 11th time, did Officer Pantaleo relent. And perhaps most importantly, Wolf, the entire confrontation was caught on video for all the world to see. Eric Garner was killed in plain sight, and there's no disputing what happened. And so it's inexplicable that this particular grand jury could arrive at this result. That's why I've concluded it's a stunning miscarriage of justice.
Well, let me press you on that point, Congressman, because you're a member of the House Judiciary Committee, you're a lawyer, you understand how these things go. They presumably saw the same videotape, all of the same videotape, and other videotapes that we have now seen repeatedly. How do you explain their decision not to indict?
Well, that's the interesting thing, Wolf. It's inexplicable. There is no rational way to explain it. But what we can do is try and get some transparency as to what actually transpired in those grand jury proceedings. The prosecutor has to appeal to a judge under New York law in order for the proceedings to be released. That differs from the situation down in Ferguson, Missouri. We're hopeful that we can get some understanding as to what took place. What questions were asked? Was Officer Pantaleo aggressively cross-examined for his reasoning behind the use of the chokehold and his failure to relent during any of the moments when Eric Garner said he couldn't breathe? These are just some of the questions. We also need to know, Wolf, did this prosecutor actually request that Officer Pantaleo be charged with manslaughter, with criminally negligent homicide, with reckless endangerment of human life? There's a whole variety of different things that could have resulted in a criminal charge, and people are stunned all across the country and all across the world, and that's why we see these protests.
We know that Daniel Pantaleo, he's at the center of this case, and it's a pretty horrific, tragic case, as we all know. The other police officers, all of whom testified, who were with him and were holding Eric Garner down, I understand they all testified, but they received immunity from any prosecution. Is that a problem?
It's absolutely a problem, and it's further evidence that the grand jury system is broken, and that this particular prosecutor didn't seem to be interested in aggressively arriving at the truth. There should have been an indictment. We should have a trial. It should be public for all the world to see. At this point, if these officers have been given absolute immunity, which appears to be the case, then they can't even be prosecuted for other potential violations of the law, because they were essentially bystanders in most instances as Eric Garner was being killed on video live on a Staten Island street for everyone to see. We've got a broken grand jury system. We've got a broken criminal justice system. And I think across the country, we've got to examine whether prosecutors can credibly be asked to aggressively bring charges against police officers who they work with each and every day. There's an inherent conflict of interest that seems to exist.
Do you have confidence, Congressman, in the New York Police Commissioner, Bill Bratton?
I have confidence in the mayor's good faith willingness to resolve this problem. I'm hopeful that the police commissioner will be willing to take a complete look, not just at retraining, that's a good step in the right direction, but it's his broken windows policing strategy which aggressively targets nuisance violations, particularly in communities of color, that led to this encounter, and that's a big problem. In other words, this would not have occurred unless those officers were instructed to aggressively police the sale of loose, untaxed cigarettes. That's not something that New York Police Department resources should be spent on. Perhaps the New York State Tax Department. We want the New York City Police Department to go after persistent criminals, gangbangers, and others who really pose a threat to the well-being and to the public safety of the people in New York. So, Commissioner Bratton, we want you to come to the table and have a real discussion, not just about training, but about police tactics.
That sounds like less than a ringing endorsement of the police commissioner. I take it you have confidence in Bill de Blasio, the mayor, but I'm not hearing that endorsement, that ringing endorsement for the police commissioner.
I have confidence in the mayor, but he's also to step up. As the president has said, people all across the country, we don't want words, we want action. Now, the responsibility also rests with Congress. That's why we want Congress to address the problem, not run away from the problem. This is an American issue, not just a Democratic issue, a Republican issue, or conservative or progressive issue. I think all good Americans have been disturbed at what we've seen, particularly as it relates to the death of